everybody, welcome to my creative design portfolio. I call it Nova Inventa because I believe it every time we have projects or new designs, it's always a new discovery for us. Hence the Latin term for new discovery, Nova Inventa. Let's start off with a realization that I had throughout my practicum journey, and it's that good design seeks to improve even when it's at its best. So we know that life evolves, and when life moves on, design also needs to evolve and move on to keep up with it. Again, my name is Samantha Lumang. I am a fourth year industrial design student, and this term I took my online practicum. So I'll start off with the first project I had for this term, and it was in partnership with Radicolab Design Enterprises, and it was designing for Island Girl for the New York Now Expo in summer 2021. So the brief of the project was to accessorize or create appliques for Island Girl's existing bags. These were my initial concepts, and they revolved around the ideas of insect embroidery, flower embroidery, and even some fringe, based on what Radical Lab suggested as well, and the mood boards that we created. So from these initial design concepts, we came up with these final concepts. The first is the Theo Solihia handbag. So we added some fringe to it in 2 of the 3 color palettes that they had chosen, which were plain bolds and plain neutrals. The second concept was for their triangle bag, so similar to the Theo bag, but this time the fringe was relocated to the bottom part of the bag, and instead of the original handles, they were replaced with shell inlay handles, one of their new inventions in Island Girl. The third concept is for their Maya Solihia bag, so it's a round bag, hence the fringes are around the bag, and the insect embroidery is angled in the center. The fourth bag concept was for their extra large empanada clutch, and this makes use of the third palette, which is the plain pastel, as well as the other color palette, their plain bolds. And in this design, it is focused on the flower embroidery, so we incorporated that such that the design overflows on the back. This is another variation of the previous concept, but the empanada clutch is in turquoise or teal, but it still makes use of the design embroidery, just a different look. The sixth concept was for their Miranda City bags. So many of their city bags have quotes embroidered on them, and this one is a different kind of look on the bag. It plays on words since the insect that's featured is the bee, so it says BU. It's a mix of the insect embroidery and the text. They also have a bamboo clutch, so we created a concept for that. The insect embroidery can be placed on the leather panel of the bamboo clutch in these different kinds of ways. The last concept we had was for their Carina shell clutch, and this is one of their more expensive products, and we still use the flower embroidery just in plain pastels and plain neutrals. The next project I had was to design logos for Brain Dojo online tutorials. So this is an online business, and they currently had, and at that time they had this logo, their original logo, and they wanted to revamp it and change it up a bit, and also have a new logo for their event page where they have their online events and webinars, the JoJo Show. So from the previous original logo, we came up with this design for their Brain Dojo logo, and it uses the same illustration, but the font is changed. Since dojo is a Japanese term, we looked for fonts that were more Japanese looking, and at the same time the black was muted to fit the colors of the illustration. This is the final logo for the dojo show, and it also has some similarities to the original Brain Dojo logo, so that they look cohesive. The same font was used and the colors as well. Here are some mock-ups for the logos, and should Brain Dojo want to use it for producing shirts, pins, or maybe even making signages for themselves. More than logos, I also worked on posters or promotional materials for Brain Dojo, and these are mostly for their events, webinars, and also just to promote their services. So these are some of them. We had posters for workshops, some for demos of their classes, some that would promote free classes that they had at the time, and other services that they had as well, like tutorials. Yeah, so these are also other posters, and I also made promotional posters for their clubs, since Brain Dojo does have clubs for their students. Around March this year to June, I also worked with JCI Manila for some of their events, a couple of their events, mainly the Business of Design and Arts and their Limitless campaign also. So these events were part of their annual JCI week in 2021. So the first poster was for the Business of Design and Arts, and you can see that here on the left. It happened last April 13, and the speakers that we had were Kenneth Cobonpue, Jaime De Leon, and Bianca Carage. And on the right, you'll actually see a poster that I made for them as well, for their partnership with PLDT and Paymaya, but this event is still currently in the works. These are some of the promotional materials also that I made for the Business of Design and Arts event. So these included group and event page banners, a description about the event, who our partners were, how to sign up, and even a thank you post for post-event. We also had collaterals that would talk about the speakers and show their speaker profiles and countdown gifs. And the second project that I worked on with JCI Manila was for Limitless. Limitless is a campaign that they have that focuses more on education or teaching the JCI members. So their event was for effective communications, building a foundation, and crafting your message. And this happened the day before the Business of Design and Arts, April 12th. More than that, they also asked me to create a video thumbnail for one of their previous events because they wanted to upload the event recording on their YouTube channel. So this was effective communication, building a foundation with Commissioner Oli Saw. The last few projects are projects that I worked on with Get Creative, and this one was to design a logo for LibRice International. So they have a current logo, but they want to revamp it. They wanted to keep the font of the word LibRice itself, but they were okay with changing the overall look. And they also wanted an icon to complement and accompany the current logo. So on the left, you'll actually see some of my sketches from ideating for the LibRice logo. And from these sketches, we ended up with 2 semi-final designs. So this is design A, in which they wanted a more minimalist look, but in 3D. So we had this design, and to break it down, each component of the logo or the icon has a meaning as well. So on top, you'll see that there is a semicircle representative of a globe because they are an international company, but they have a chapter here in the Philippines. You'll also see an arrow in the logo moving forward because they want to show progress as well and how they help companies progress in the future. On the left side, you'll subtly see a tooth of a cog because they wanted to incorporate the cog or the gear in their logo but not show it obviously or directly. So we put that there because LipRice is also a company that focuses on industries, meaning construction, systems and maintenance, etc. You'll also see at the bottom there's a subtle L, and on top there's a letter P for LipRice. And the colors that were used were also the current colors of LipRice, and they didn't want to change that. This was the second semi-final logo, also three-dimensional in a way, but gave a different feel to it. And each component also had symbolisms for it. So at the back, you'll see there's a circle representative of the globe again, but in a different way. In the middle, you'll see an infinity sign, which shows sustainability, one of the core values of LipRice. On the left side, you'll see the letter L and the letter P combined as well. Here are some mock-ups for the logos should LipRice use it for business cards, stamps, prints on their documents, or even as a signage. Another project I worked on was an ID layout. Were ID layouts for YGC Cars and Get Creative. So these were two different companies with two different requests for their layout. ID design specifically. For Get Creative, they already had a pre-existing design, but they wanted to revamp it and update it as well because for their employees, the last time they updated IDs were last 2018. As for YGC Cars, they wanted new ID designs for their dealerships in Honda and in Isuzu. And these were the final designs. So on the left, you'll see the ID designs for YGC Cars, mainly for Honda. So they have 4 dealerships, Honda dealerships, mainly Green Hills, Manila, Quezon City, and their Tandang Sora Service Center. And for Isuzu, they have 3 as well. They have 3, Isuzu Leyte, Commonwealth, and Manila. So there were other designs prior to this, but they ended up choosing this design because they wanted something simple but striking as well. On the right side, you'll see the IDs for Get Creative. So they had a previous exit. This was their previous design, but edited a little, and the colors were adjusted to their color branding, and also the design was adjusted a little. So for these IDs, more than designing them, I was also part of the whole process of making and producing them. So I took part in taking the photo shoot for the employees, having new photos taken of them. I also worked on retouching and editing the photos, laying them out in the designs, updating the information at the back of the designs, at the back of the IDs, and even producing the IDs. So we printed them and shipped them out to the employees. And you can see I have an ID there for myself as well because I'm currently working for Get Creative. These are some mock-ups of the IDs, just how they would look like in real life. And this is the last project I have, which involved materials or posters for Get Creative Corporation. So as the year goes by, Get Creative does have a lot of events up their sleeve, and campaigns up their sleeve, so they need promotional materials for these. So these are some of the posters that I created, one of which was the Adobe sign demonstration that they had for UST. They also had an event for entrepreneurs. They taught EOS, which is the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And for this event, more than making the poster, I made promotional materials as well, such as websites for the registration page, the participants kit, and the session recording, and even promotional videos like an invitation video and a couple of interview videos with the speaker. And every month, Get Creative has game night for their employees, so every month they ask me to make posters for that as well. One of the campaigns that they had around last year was called Creative Tips and Tricks, and they asked me to create promotional materials for it. The goal of the campaign was to kind of show customers and leads that that Adobe is not as difficult as they think it is, and there are many tips or tricks that they can use to create better designs, even if they're just beginners or wherever they are in their design journey. So this campaign was a series of 5 sets. We had promotional materials for tips and tricks on Adobe Capture, Adobe Lightroom, Adobe Photoshop, a mix of how to use Adobe After Effects and Premiere Pro together, and Adobe XD, their UI UX web design software. So throughout my practicum journey, I think practicum is essential in college education because this is where we students get to apply what we learn in the classroom to clients and companies outside, technically the real world. Working with a practicum client online, I think, has its balance. In some ways, it's easy because most of the clients that I had were easy to talk to. They're approachable and they're open to ideas. But it's also difficult in a sense that we're kind of limited in terms of what we can do. Since it is online, most of the work is digital as well, instead of like physical models or prototypes, which would be more costly if you send them from different locations. One of the values that I learned during my practicum was the value of accountability, more so that we're doing it online, since we don't get to see the client or be with them throughout the day physically. We need to be more accountable for our works, attend meetings punctually, submit submit and follow the deadline, and just maintain good communication with the client or whoever is part of the project. I knew that IDPRAC2 would be online, but I still enrolled because I saw this as a challenge to improve my skills. I also wanted to take advantage of the fact that most of the work will be online, and considering that I know my strengths are in digital design more than actual prototyping or modeling, I just leveraged on that. For working with clients online, I think most of them were easy to talk to again, and we didn't really have that many problems with them. I only had problems with a couple of clients. There was one client, Lip Rice, but the fault wasn't really on our end. It was more on their end because their executive board couldn't choose a design. They had different opinions and design directions. So we ended up with 2 semi-final logos, and currently they are working to improve or maybe combine those. So all in all, I definitely believe that I gave my best in all of my practicum works, even if I had my setbacks, my mistakes, and even some downfalls. I knew that I still gave it my best because I wouldn't give work that is half-assed or work that I wasn't proud of. So I'm just proud that I was able to finish the work and I was able to manage it, and that I stayed true to myself as a designer. If you want to get to know more about me as a designer, this is my resume. But that ends my creative design portfolio. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys learned something from it as well, because I definitely learned a lot from it. So thank you and have a great day. Stay safe.